demonstrate most of the methods that are mentioned here. The point of the webinar. So this is going to be repetitive. It's going to be also held in 2 days. Oh my god. Right. Okay. So, what? No, fuck. So the point of this webinar is, as I said, to send you to partner servers. Before you're sent to the partner servers, you have to know how to screen share. And I'm aware that most of you have no idea how to do that. So I'll cover the methods, approaches, and the general logic for screen sharing. I know that a lot of you have also never read any of my guides, so we're gonna begin with an introduction. The first introduction, so we're gonna skip that so we have all the screen sharing guides mentioned over here, except for this one. This one doesn't work anymore. And what we have is essentially cheat detection methods. The very first thing you have to do when you join a screen share. Do you guys know what tools are used? I know that most servers use Zendesk. Some servers use Rust Desk, so they use Rust Desk. It's very nice. It's probably better than Zendesk at this point. Essentially, the way you connect through Zendesk is important. So we have 3 partner servers that you're gonna be sent to. All of the servers use AnyDesk or Rust Desk or TeamViewer. What that means is that every time you connect to the screen share, you should first check the tray icons, so the hidden icons, because they might have autoclickers, they might have mouse markers or the mouse softwares that you're gonna be checking. That is for Minecraft. As for FiveM, I think the first thing I would do in a FiveM screen share, check their startup items. Which is startup applications, and then you check the status of all of that. Sometimes I have seen players who have essentially scripts running. So scripts running on the startup. The way you check what's running with this startup task, for example, this is you click here and go to properties. So you can find these, basically go to properties of at least one of them. This is gonna show the directory, which is what steps. This is the first step you do in a screen share. The first steps, essentially. Then you go to the advanced. You can check the signature status of these. No, we don't check for. This is startup. Okay. So we don't check for recordings because there is no issue with them recording. I think that's clear. You can also just right-click these and go properties or open the file location. Most of the time, if they have, can I turn on my OBS for my future view? Okay. Sure, yes, thing is you can record, but you cannot leak this to anybody else. Nobody else has to see this. So you can right-click this and you can also go to the file location if they have that. The way you go to file location, let's say we are having Microsoft Edge. If they have anything else, you go to file locations, you can analyze what's going on here. Anything that is enabled on startup essentially starts with the computer. Another thing to check startup applications is through search everything, and you go to you go to startup, so you just go to the recent, you go back to Windows, and then you go to the start menu, and go to programs, and then you can see the start menu programs, for example those. So these are not startup applications, but they can show several things. For example, they have the folders that they might have Visual Studio Code, for example, or Windows PowerShell and stuff like that. You can also go to, well, Docs is essentially a different application. You can also check PowerShell through here. You go to Get Redline, go to Microsoft again. Here, not Windows. Here you can go to Vault, which can be their personal drive, so OneDrive. You also have MMC, protect new folders, stuff like this. Essentially what you do first when you join the screen share is analyze the system. You can go to recent items, for example, that's recent. Go to printer shortcuts if you want to, or network shortcuts. These are sometimes useful because when they execute files from network drives, sometimes it shows up here, sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time it doesn't. Startup. So there is a folder for startup. So there's start menu startup and start menu programs and startup. So again, if there is anything in here, then you can bound for that. If there is anything in here, then you can also bound for that. Not for anything, but you have to check if there is cheats in that location. So the next thing is, of course, use search everything, because you're gonna need that a lot. Another thing is, you can go to details, and you can also check the descriptions. So with things, you can check if there are some weird applications running in the background, but you can just do with username, so that you can only see current users and current user applications. For example, from here, we start the applications that I have currently running, like VPS Office and this and stuff like that. So that's essentially it. There's also CPU monitoring. You go to memory, you can go to disk, you can go anywhere essentially. You can go to resource monitor through the 3 dots. Resource monitor is pretty nice, and I'm gonna show you why. These monitors the resources on the device, although it doesn't show closed applications. As you can see, there is nothing that is closed here. It shows us the memory of the device, which ones are modified, which memory leaks are currently on the system. You can monitor all of those, you just do medium. And essentially you can monitor what's going on with the system. This is not always useful, but you can also just check for drivers and network and stuff like that. Another thing that is useful about this utility is that when you use nothing important, that when you use System Informer, you can just dump resource monitor, it is perfmon, so the performance monitor. And here you can just do a lot of things like extract the applications that have been running, the executables, stuff like that, or you can just analyze all of this. Now this is, as you can see, this also shows prefetch files, so sometimes the performance monitor is going to show quite important things. Yeah, sometimes it's going to be useful. The way you analyze those, no, that's way too far. This is not a premium webinar. You can do that for the Lotus Plus, but not this. Yeah, so yeah, okay. Take your way far. These guys have no idea. Why the fuck is this guy allowed here? How? I see. I see. I have no idea how you're allowed, but okay. So anyway, basically, The thing that we see after this is that you can essentially monitor all of that. Now, for beginners, what you guys need to know is um, you have to know what prefetch is, what prefetch can be used for. I have made a guide on that. However, I think I will probably just introduce you to prefetch now. The way you check with the way prefetch works, let's begin with that. I think even my guide begins with that, even this guide begins with this, with prefetch, I think. So let's just do with Ice. So Ice wrote this guide, and let's begin with Ice introduction to screen sharing. So this is translated to English from Spanish, so not companies that develop non-competitive video games avoid. Essentially, the whole point of screen sharing that I think you guys have to be aware of is that, let's the intro. Is it black on my device? Okay. Basically, it's not turned on or it cannot be parsed. So the point here is that the whole point of screen sharing is that you guys are, because games don't have reliable anti-cheats, they don't have, the servers don't have reliable client-sided anti-cheats. Screen sharers are there to essentially detect the bypasses and cheats that the players have. I know that explaining this is very dumb, but because you guys are new, because you guys have to be prepared for everything, you have to know why you're here. The way Red Office sees screen sharing is that it is no more than digital forensics and information technology combined. What you do is only for episode. Well, you can also attend. But this is fundamentals to screen sharing. It's like very old. Not old, but very basic stuff, basically. Right. Why are you guys being distracted with whatever this is? Doesn't matter. The question to this is the answer to this question is that it doesn't matter. System Informer has issues with reading this on that Windows device, probably because it's Chinese and probably because this is highly protected on that Windows 10. I think it is 10. Yeah, it is. Basically, the first thing you do into screen sharing, so you don't need CSRSS, you can also use a search indexer if you want to, or a site host if you want to. The very important tool that you're going to be using during your screen share is Search Everything. The reason this is an important tool is because you can sort all sorts of files, executables, documents, but not documents, but DLL files, and extensionless files as well. To search everything for extensionless files, just do ext and space. That's it. It's not going to have any other extensions. Yes, extensionless. These files are now extensionless. Another thing you have to add to extensionless, I'm talking about search everything. The way you use file.exe, yeah, extension is .exe, yeah, right. When you put space in the extension string, you get files that do not have, do not have extensions. The reason this is important is because you have to also limit the file sizes to 35. And let's say, for example, less than 35 megabytes. So this also includes 1 megabyte. So what you can do is specify 5 megabyte to 35 megabytes, or 1 megabyte to 35. As you can see, there are a lot of files that are under 1 megabyte. So there's like 2000 from 1 to 35 that are extensionless. What you can do then is export the results that you have currently sorted. Export all of that to whichever folder you want. Right, I think I should probably set up the permissions for this, right. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense, why? Pretty much. Okay, so whoever is here can stay, I guess. The point here is that when you export all of those files, you have to name them, change the save as type to text, so that they are stored only as paths. You can also just do paths, just name it paths and save it. Now we have all the directories loaded over here. Or over here. Let me delete those. Essentially we have the paths over here, and these are the files that were loaded. The next thing we can do, and actually the most recommended one, you can signature check all of those files. You can either use path parser from SpockW, which is over here, path parser. Paths parser, is it paths or path? Okay. Or you can also use Bauhaus signature checker, which is PowerShell based and pretty much faster and easier to use. Maybe not faster, but easier. So we have this paths parser. You can watch this video if you want a demonstration for path parser. Oh my god, I just opened this. Let's not open Copilot. Okay. So basically, so many ads. Right, so the way this works is that when you inject files, so you can watch this, so check the guide, which is the latest guide I have posted. It's better, yes, checks for fake signatures, it also checks for replacements and file deletions. Also, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just gonna use Bauhaus signature checker because it's, PowerShell and easier. The essence, the point of this is the same. You run the signature checker on paths, okay? So now you go to CDSS1 and then you go to over here and you do this. Now this means that the files are gonna be signature checked. Because they are extensionless files, although this is important, because they are extensionless files, if a file returns hash mismatch, or if the file returns no signature or not signed or invalid signature, you have to check that file. That is because these files are not supposed to have or not have file signatures, so they are just extensionless log files. For example, network activity, network action, literally whatever the fuck this is. You just edit this with Notepad and it doesn't matter. Right, okay? So it doesn't matter. But they are not supposed to have signatures. Of course, they do have, some of them do have digital signatures, but they are not supposed to or expected to have a signature. So that's the point. Now we have to wait for this. This is gonna take a while. Well, not depends on the speed of the device, but I believe Spock still takes less time. It also prints in this device, in this CMD. Now the next thing you do is when you want to check executions of files. Executions of files, you have to just watch this video because it is prefetch and I have talked about this a lot. I can demonstrate what I'm talking about. So in prefetch, do I have it? Yes. When you download in prefetch, you can also use executed program list, which is also mentioned in this guide. Let me show you. Executed programs list. It's probably program list, but okay. Okay, I see. So we have these over here. We have a video guide of this, thank God. And you can watch this video as well.
Executed program
So
list is a near
the guide explains pretty much everything that we have written and what we have produced.
soft utility that
So this shows the executions of files, and you can sort them by file last modified, file creation date, file size, file attributes, and product name. Product name being blank means that the file has no signature, which also means that the executed file over here, if it has nothing, is most likely deleted. It takes data from registry files, so it is a registry-based execution determine. It also has privilege detections, so that's fine. Now that we have the results, let's analyze them. Say unknown error, so this means that the file has, the script has no idea whether or not the file has a signature or doesn't, which is expected. This is what it is supposed to show, because it's not supposed to have or not have a signature. Now we sort this by the signature status, and we see two files with not signed identifiers. When files have, I think I've also talked about this in my, what the fuck? Okay, so I think I've also talked about those in my guides, but essentially these cache data, as you can see, you're gonna see this is from code. Code is the Visual Studio code, and then we see unsigned files. Let's open those files through search everything. Instead of typing out the entire path, we're gonna just type the name of the file. So F000006. We have a lot of those files. They are almost everywhere. But we know that the path of the file is updata roaming cache of the code, Visual Studio code. So what you can do, you can also just do code cache data, and then you can just do F00006. Now you have found a file that basically logged into extensionless files when you scan them. You can right click on this and you can just go to OpenPath. Okay. Now you're gonna see a lot of files, but here you pay attention to the sizes. As you can see, this has 23 megabytes. This is 23 megabytes in size, so 2300 kilobytes. There's also another file that is significantly higher than the rest. That file is the 00A. Now these two files are most likely not extensionless files or caches. They are most likely executables or DLL files. We can copy these files and take them to the folder that we have for screen sharing and paste them. What we do now is that we rename them to .exe, for example, and as you can see we have Visual Studio code, so if you double click that, it is corrupted because it is not in the right directory. And then we go to .exe on this one, and it is also Visual Studio code. Turns out these files cannot be executed. Now what do we do when this happens? How do we analyze the contents of the file? Do you guys have any ideas so far? Or what do we do next when something like this happens? Please don't talk, please. Okay, yeah. That is an option, but let's say something else, okay? Does any of you have any idea what we have to do now? The easiest way. Cannot type. We can try. Okay, that makes so much more sense. Okay. That makes so much more sense. Oh my god. Next. I think you should be able to type now. Yes. Can you guys type? Yeah, okay. Virus total. Okay, that's nice. That is a nice guess. That is a very good guess. Go to virus total. Okay, let's go to virus total. Now what we can do is put those files. Let's go with the highest one. Let's upload the file to virus total and see what do we not happen. Okay. Basically. We have to wait for this to load, but that is a very good answer. Another good answer was which the answer that technology said. You can also use detect it easy, which is a method mentioned in this guide. Detect it easy. So we have, so the analysis is mentioned here. You can analyze the file with detected easy and find relations to AnyDesk, and you can also use, this is also mentioned here. Okay, so here it is. We can use detected easy. Detected easy will be useful in case the application you suspect cannot be opened due to such reasons, due to whatever reasons basically. And then we have a video demonstration from Screenshot community on how to use detected easy. Detected easy, essentially, you execute that and you select the cheat. After selecting that cheat, you can scan it, basically. And then you can either go to strings, imports, exports, that compiler. You can also check entropy. You can also click VirusTotal so that you'll upload the file to VirusTotal. Or you just go to, again, strings, and then you check the contents of the file. For example, in this case, .cpp, so this is not normal, and this would get you banned because this is a compiled file. A compiled file means that, for example, this guy just said start because this stops DPS, diagnostic pulse service, stops dial track and uses timeout. So it waits for a second or 10, yeah, this is 1 second. And then it deletes the file. So this is the self-destruction of this sheet, which you have to just type in the contents on the memory of the file. Now that you guys see, this file has a lot of things. What it also says is that the file is an overlay. And that the file is not signed. Now this analysis through VirusTotal is gonna be discussed later because right now it won't provide much. But this is not enough to account for, of course. Not enough, definitely not to account for. So you can analyze the file later because that's more complex. So now let's go back to Prefetcher. So you have Prefetcher, which shows the executions of files because it is prefetch. To check the executions of files, you sort these by date modified because that's the date creation. So creation time is the first execution of the file. Date of modification is the latest execution of the file. What we can do then is you can go to conhost and check what was loaded. Sometimes this will show executable cheats that they have. Now here's something to be aware of. You have to sort the results in conhost and you can send to indexes. This is something I have not mentioned anywhere yet. When I sort this by indexes, this shows the load of files, so which files were loaded at what period of time. If you see that an execution of a file or a cheat is by the end of this list, it means that the file it means that the file was most likely not currently executed. For example, we have make cap and reg.exe. I have not executed any of those files recently. To demonstrate that, I'm going to use consent. The latest file, latest execution that I have is regedit, which was yesterday that I executed this. This file and search everything file. There's also system informer file. Then we have CMD, then we have consent. Now here's the point here is that you have to figure out which files that are loaded here were the oldest or the newest. Here's the question. What do you guys think is the indication that the file was executed recently? So the latest execution of the file. Is it 0? Is it the numbers before 100? Recent equals the higher. Anybody else? 0. Okay. So anybody else? No, the question is, what range do you expect? Do you think that the higher it is, the latest it is, or so the higher number means that it was recently executed, or the lower number means that it was recently executed? Okay. So I'm glad that I asked this. So the point here is, no, lower numbers mean that these applications or these DLL files are loaded initially on the device when consent was initiated. Ever since the initiation of consent, so this is the first instances, so first DLLs and loads that it does, everything that comes after is recent. This is recent. You can check that. Even this is recent. You can check these by just going to search everything and then you just go to hype.exe. And as you can see, it is recent. I ran it today. Well, yesterday. Now. The way you sort this is that, the way you understand this, is that the higher the number, the latest the entry. So in this case, 169 is the 70 is the latest entry. Although these require further evaluation, it requires further checks. Nice. Good job. It requires further checks, but if you find cheats over here, as a screenshot, you can ban for that. As a screenshot, you can ban for that. So there's that. Another task mentioned yesterday and executed again today. The actual existing preset state won't be updated again, right? So how is the index used? Right. So the point of index is that consent and can host allow executions that are not just double clicks. So if you execute a file through CMD, it's gonna be there, but it's also gonna be in com host. Something like that. What you're saying is gonna leave different traces. Yours is gonna leave a trace of an MMC. And it's gonna have scheduler in the memory of it. Do I have it? Over here. So the latest execution of MMC, in this case, 59 means that we have like 300 more entries after that. So during the execution of MMC, or the loading of MMC, task scheduler was the 80-second operation that was initiated. So if you find this, technically, in MMC, you can bound for them. You can bound for accessing task scheduler, but it has to be recent. By recent, I mean date. Check the date. Yeah, you can also do that. Task manager is also gonna work with that. Another thing that you guys can do is, okay, just check the file names. Okay. In this case, you see PowerShell. Okay. So if there are cheats, what most screenshots miss is the names over here. You have to look at everything. And then just check for the dates of the execution. So for example, this is a cheat, this is the execution date, and you have your verification on when you can download that. So when you find a file here, open search everything, and if you want to double check what it is, just type the name of the file here. For example, updater.exe. You have this updater here, you have this updater here. You can also double click this and just copy the path as well. And just paste the path. And just do updater.exe. That's not my show. Okay. You just put this in brackets. And then you see everything over here. Okay. For example, updates over here. Use brackets if it doesn't filter anything. No, the imports don't fill up. The way imports. So as I said initially, when I began explaining imports, I mean indexes, so it's not imports, it's indexes. The point here is that indexing means the indexing of the prefetch cache. So this shows which files, DLLs, or information was loaded by step by step, essentially. 0 means that the DLL was the first DLL to have been injected or they loaded into this prefetch trace. Whatever comes next is step by step. So 63rd is the latest DLL in that prefetch trace. So the prefetch trace here means that it's gonna have the last runtimes. Okay, it has the last runtimes. So let me show you something about consent, or let's go ConHost. ConHost also has last execution times, so last runtimes. So every information you see here in this prefetch is from 2/22, so this, up to current date, so date modified. So it was from yesterday to today, all the information. In most cases like, let's say, something that logs everything, let's say consent. Sometimes this is gonna show information from the creation time of the prefetch trace up to the modification time. That is why the date creation only has some of these. The modification times only has some of these. Now the point here is that this doesn't prove 100% that the file executed was within the interval of the last runtime, for example, like this. Within the interval of date creation and modification times, but it proves that the execution, so everything that is loaded over here, was between this and the latest time of modification. It proves that, essentially. So that's pretty much all I'm gonna say about prefetch. The next thing as a screenshot that you have to do, make sure to check the recent applications. So you have to shell recent. You can find a lot of things here. You just scroll down and just analyze those. The main things that you are looking for is the size of the link file. You can also hover over this and it's gonna show sometimes it's gonna show the location. So when you hover over the link file or the link, it's gonna show the location of where the link came from. So where the file is currently. So for this case, okay, it's gonna show in downloads. Okay. When you hover over those, these are the internet traces. So when you double click those, it's just gonna open either the browser or just remove itself. Okay. so it just updates itself. The point here is that when you go back, you can go to the PowerShell logs, which in this case, here's the thing about PowerShell. The date modified of the console history text is the latest entry in this PowerShell. So this command over here is a command that I executed 2 days ago. So at 12 AM in 2020, so it is like 2 to 3 days ago. If you want to check other latest executions, you can open PowerShell, open it as admin, regular PowerShell, open it as admin, and hold the up arrow button. Not hold, but just press it. So it's gonna show you the latest command that they executed. This is going to work even if they, let's say, delete the entry. Let's say even if they delete the entry. Let's go all the way down here. Maybe delete this, or even if they have this disabled. I'm not sure if it will PowerShell. Let's open this over here. Go up. Okay, yeah. So the entry is deleted, but if loading is disabled, then sometimes, most of the time, it will still show that. From indexes. Yet you are missing my point. My point that I said, yeah, most of the time. Not always, though. No, I think not in that case. But to answer this, you have to listen to me very carefully. Now, because I'm not gonna explain it twice. I'm already explaining it for the second time. Don't type, listen. I mean, pretty much. So here's the thing. I'm not mad, it's just that sometimes I explain a lot of things, and because people don't pay attention, they don't learn, and then they ask me the same question twice. As I said, indexes only for conhost, and consent, because these 2 files show the dates of operations on the device. When you sort the indexes, conhost and consent to show executions or the information. So for example, this consent or conhost is not gonna have anything because this is from last month. This doesn't have anything. But if you want to check what I did last month, then this is where you analyze this, because it's gonna show the information contents that it had from between 1/26th, 1 AM, and between basically this time span. This is the time span involves the information of. For example, in this case, I had some packages, I created packages, I executed some packages. This is suspicious because there are package bypasses, and you can check that. Okay. The latest conhost, as you can see, is gonna have different contents. Doesn't have the same things. That is because this conhost has information between yesterday and today, 23rd. Okay? Doesn't include information from the creation time, although maybe it does, I don't know. In practice, it only shows between those last runtimes. So what I'm saying is that date of modification doesn't prove that the file was executed today. Date of modification if this. So if, for example, the cheat is in the last 5, okay, like here, then yes, because that means the cheat was executed. The cheat was the latest entry that it executed. So that maybe means that basically that's enough for you to bound for that essentially. Point of indexes is that basically the point of indexes is to give you an idea of what files loaded first and last in those traces. This is also going to be very useful when we begin explaining bypasses, so just know that indexes are important details. Okay, that's it for prefetch. I also have a lot explained in the prefetch video, so if you guys want to learn something, you can just read them. Not read, but watch the half an hour video on prefetch. Although, basically, let's move on. The next important utility that you're going to be using in screenshare is System Informer. The first thing that you guys have to be aware of as beginners, let's say you are beginners, you have no idea what you're doing. There are tools that are going to be very useful. For example, firewall logs. A firewall in Prefetch and System Informer shows current or latest firewall logs, so the boot of the system. There are also services, there are disks and devices. Okay. And the point is that System Informer has replaced Process Hacker 3. I don't have a strong opinion about those two tools, but the whole point is that System Informer is the only version of Process Hacker, let's call it that has kernel driver for Windows 11. That's all. The whole point of System Informer is to have kernel driver. The first thing you do when you open System Informer, go to System. Okay, wait. So first this, okay. Go to System, go to Options, and you can click Enable Kernel Mode Driver. When you click this, you close and you're gonna restart this, so it's gonna show up a pop icon, and that's that. The next thing you do, that you have to do, right click any column. So column, in this case, are those rows at the top that you can interact with. Column, right click on this, and choose columns. Here you're gonna have to find bits. You're gonna have to find the uptime, so just type time, kernel or modification. This is not gonna show, it's not gonna help, but timestamp, timeline, and start time. And you can also do relative start time. Timeline is the duration of the process. Okay? So it has been up for around 10 hours, which is true because I turned this on at like 10 a.m. I think, or it was, whatever it was. So this also shows the timestamp. Timestamp is essentially the like DPS of the process, but it doesn't mean that this is when the process was started. So you basically don't need this actually. You also don't need timeline, but it's still useful, because when you sort by timeline, what happens is that the least used applications, so the most latest applications are going to be shown here. For example, in this case, timeline of System Informer is very low, because it has been up for relatively 3 minutes, okay? Which is true, because I've had this up for almost 3 minutes. You can also check the start time of the application, which is also true, which relatively matches that over here. And that's why it has that. So the more you go down, basically, the most up, processes are gonna be here. So the most used processes. So you can also here check which process has been running. Like from like the thing time there, for example. So this essentially means is that those processes that have the highest runtime or the uptime have the most logs. So for example, if I just filter registry, right, which I don't think I can, yeah. So I don't have kernel mode driver because I'm on older version, but basically those processes have the most information. What you do after this is that you check this, you sort by relative timeline, not like this, but start time, and you check if there are something to do with key off. What the fuck? Okay. Why? Why don't I ban? Like what the fuck's too many key off? Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay, sure. Calm down. No, it has nothing to do with key off. Oh, LSAS, okay. They search key off in that process, but no, I just read. So this process, sure, they filter that. Basically, you filter for key off there. Yes, sure. But it is no reason to. Yeah. How do I start now? Yeah, you have the most questions actually. Okay, anyway, basically. The next thing you guys have to do, like you have to do this, basically check the start time of the important processes. So this is gonna help, for example. Let's imagine this is DPS, or let's imagine this is Minecraft, or let's imagine this is very close Fiven. Okay, let's not imagine Fiven. Let's imagine this is DPS, System Performer Uptime. It has been running for 7 minutes, you ban for it. Yes, DPS is supposed to be running with the system. Okay, so that's that. You can also go to services, for example, and you can also assert the columns here. What you can sort here is the virus total, verified assigner, timeline, key modified type, and exit code. This is important because sometimes if they have custom drivers, this is gonna show verified signer, support disabled. Okay, I have it disabled. Okay, so I also have scan disabled because I don't have current. But okay, however, you can just do exit code. Okay, go to processes, and there's that. Do you guys have any questions so far? Because we're gonna start these now. Okay. Okay. Do you know who can answer this question? You know, see who can answer this question. Okay. Local Security Authority Subsystem Service. That's what LSASS is. Good job. You can Google that. So these questions, okay. I'm gonna answer what LSAS does. So, oh, this is nice. We just found a blog that uses credentials. So what LSAS does is that it stores the credentials of an application. So it stores the credentials of the application. it is responsible so that the files are verified. So it is essentially a part of Windows Defender. However, this LSASS process is gonna show the most of the time it is used for accept EULA, it is used for passwords, stuff like that. What you can check this with this is that they used an authorized or authenticated application. What that means is that the cheat they are using or something, it is used in FiveM, it is used everywhere. It is also used in Minecraft, but not every screenshot uses it. The reason they don't use it is because they don't know how to or what to do with it. For example, if I just do says, if I dump this myself, can I? I hope I can. Okay, I need to update System Informer. Wait. Let me System Informer. Let me uninstall this shit. Can I just delete all of this? Okay, so it has been deleted. So now I have to get System Informer. Through the app? Yeah, oh yeah, actually, you're right. But I don't trust it. Most of the time it doesn't work for some reason. Or it's because, I don't know. Basically, the reason that the way that works, what the fuck? I'll check what that was. Okay. So you go to continue. I don't think that I'm gonna be able to load kernel. But I don't know why, but I think not. Please. Oh my god, it actually loaded, okay. LSASS, okay, so I'm gonna explain a lot of things. Sure, the first thing you guys can do. Oh, it's okay, I can download that. The first thing you guys can do is go to LSAS, so which is basically go to memory of this file, the process, go to strings, filter 5. So this is important. The reason we filter 5 is because there are strings with 4, so this is the minimum string dump that System Informer supports. 5 is that the minimum of a string is gonna be 5, which means that a lot of information is gonna be redacted. And yeah, the reason we filter 5, by the way, also is that, for example, 4 means that it's gonna show dot. Let's say the file's name is something, okay? So something .exe. These characters are already 4 characters, which means that if we filtered 4, yes, if we filtered 4, it would, so System Informer, even if this is a Unicode character, let's say something like this, System Informer still recognizes that these are characters. So the point we do, the reason we do 5 is that you need at least these, or at least like these, to belong in System Informer, okay? Super community can explain that better, but just do 5. Standard Unicode, detect Unicode, and you can also do, let's just say you don't select private. Actually, you do. You have to. I was gonna experiment, but okay. Okay, just do private mapped. You can also do image, but it won't do much. You can just do 5. The next thing you do is key auth. Then key auth. Key auth. This is gonna show the key authentication check. As I said, these checks for the authentication, key authentication. Wait, I was right. Yes, that's what okay. What I'm telling you is that this is not enough to ban for, yeah, literally every cheat logs in this. Let's say, so most of the time you have to know what you're looking for in FiveM or in LSAS to ban for. So if that says, let's say, vape, okay, you can ban for. If it says, let's say, ban what, what cheats are there, Ulan or whatever the fuck you can ban for. Scanners do check that, yes. The next thing you check is DPS, so Diagnostic Policy Service. This is something we're gonna explain very briefly, actually. Do 2 exclamation marks. You just have to do this. And then you just do dot. Here you see the executions of a file. Why exclamation marks? Because executions log with exclamation marks. So we see that there are a lot of files here. Most of these are useless. So for example, when you see brackets, like those brackets, you don't check those, you just skip them. So these are all the executed processes or applications or services that we have executed. As you can see, even the works with, yeah, it does. As you guys can see, even the files that we renamed very recently, previously we renamed those to .exe are here. Although it failed to launch, although they did not launch, they are still here. So the point of this is that, for example, as you can see, both of these applications have the same string. Yes, it would. It would not log their renaming until the file is executed. I'm gonna show you that, actually. Why not? So let's say I have an executable file. Let's say system information canary. So let's name these test 1, 2, 3, and let's name these extension.dll. Okay. Yeah, let's just do .dll. And then I'm gonna just execute these copy path. I'm gonna use, let's just use WMSC process call create. Let's just use WMSC. Okay. This is now executed, the installer. You can also just execute this just by pasting it in CMD. Now whatever happens with the file, it is still gonna be, so let's just delete this now, okay? Okay, so DPS is still gonna have that execution log. So no matter what you do with the file, DPS is gonna have the log of the file, okay? So it has to be, let me just do, it is here, but let me just do this. See? Yeah, it logs into event logs as well. WMIC, no, I don't think so. So we can cover that as well, but it's like the most, it's not used anymore, unfortunately. Although what we can do about WMIC, so basically it logs here. The point of DPS, so this is what I'm gonna explain. The point of DPS, the point of prefetch, right? Point of prefetch. So this also has the DLL logged. See, DLL is here. The point of background activity moderator is that they only log .exe files, so MC files or P files. That logic means that, no, by the way, about DPS though, DPS is the only process that also logs temp files, so you can just ban for temp files, for example, because it's gonna have them, and it's gonna have them temp. So most of it, okay, it's not here, it's gonna have it here. So as you can see, temp files are still logged. Do you just wanna know which temp files are logged? Wanna know what types of temp files? No. So the point here is that not every temp file gets logged. For example, that's why you see, for example, like session or like those not being logged. Okay. So the point here is that those temp files do not log. So the temp files that have to do with installations, so application installations like this, let's say, the temp files that include information about executable files are going to be logged because they are, essentially, they are executable files. Okay? So though temp files are going to be logged, it means that they are most likely executables. They have to do something with the executable files and stuff like that. Okay? So if you find anything other than .exe in BAM, prefetch in TPS, either double check them, or just ban them because they have renamed extensions executed. So it's gonna be enough. Another thing that you guys can use, I'm guessing that's the same as the point of that is that I think this guy wants to explain. Okay, Tag, can you explain to them what that? Okay. So the point of this is that it shows that the contents of the file have been either altered or the file has been likely, the file is most likely no longer in the same directory it was at first. The point of that is also that it is something that TPS logs those packages with. There are package bypasses. For example, you can create a packaged CMD file and then you can execute that, like for example like this. And you have to check those, time, get help, application time, uptime, stuff like that. Uptime.exe, get. So if those are no longer here, they were either deleted, replaced, or they are not cheat files. They are just packages. Also, I don't think that a lot of people use packages anymore. So I'm gonna explain those very later, or I'm not gonna explain them at all. But just know that that's something that works. So yes, so those will be explained for Lotus Plus and stuff like that. Another thing that you guys can do is use Explorer. This is the best process to me. I'm gonna say that. Because even if some processes fail to log an execution, so this doesn't prove an execution. Let's get that straight. Explorer is not proof of execution. It is also not proof of recent access. It is not proof of recent execution. Literally everything logs in here. So what you can do is sort files. So you just do file and then caches. Then it's going to show you accessed files. Okay, so it's going to show you accessed files. However, this doesn't prove that the file was recently accessed. For example, here we have accessed those, but we can't tell when they were accessed. Another thing you can do is when you find a file you want to check, double check, you can double click on them. So another thing is you can begin copying, for example, from here to here. Okay, so you copy that. So you copy these bytes. We're also gonna very soon and thing. So okay, so we have copied this. The next thing you can do is you can open ChatGPT, I guess, and ask ChatGPT, does this tell you when the file was modified? Basically, you can just use the code of that, and it's going to show you pretty much everything about the bytes. So this doesn't have last modified attributes. Another thing here is that, so you're gonna learn why I am explaining this next webinar, but essentially what you can do, you can determine the date modifier of a file through its hex information in the Windows memory. For example, just as my habit. Basically, do you guys have questions about anything that I just explained? some simple questions like that. We can finish. Oh, hello, Lassie. Hello. Hello. Thank you. Okay. So that was the. What is this useful for? That. Now, as I said, it's gonna be useful for. I'm gonna explain that in the future webinars, but for now, it's not gonna be useful for anything. Not FAT32 either. It's just general information that you guys want to know. So we have discussed the executions of files, as I said. We have also discussed System Informer, the uptimes of processes. Restarting of processes essentially is going to show the timestamp of the process that was restarted. And the next thing I'm going to tell you guys to do is read this guide from, so I'm going to give you a task. Read this guide's methods. So the latest guide that I have published, the 100-something pages, okay, I know it's 100 pages, but read the first 10 methods, okay? We're going to be covering the next webinar. Yeah, it's ended. Okay, it's done. I know that this webinar was pretty rushed. Yes, a lot of people said they cannot attend. So whoever is recording can send this webinar to the Ipsy chat.